The Montegrappa pen hovered 1 millimeter above the contract, and Dante Rossi felt the weight of 600 souls pressing down on his wrist like a garrote tightening around his throat. Rain hammered the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 52nd floor boardroom. Outside, Manhattan drowned in steel-gray fury. Inside, the air was suffocating. Expensive leather, aged whiskey, and the acrid stench of betrayal disguised as salvation. The family elders sat motionless around the obsidian table. The lawyers from Serpent Holdings watched him, with the patient hunger of vultures circling fresh carnage. 4 months. That's how long it had taken for the Rossi empire to bleed out. 4 months of hemorrhaging millions, of soldiers going unpaid, of territories going dark, the ports, the trade routes, the entire kingdom his grandfather had built with blood and bullets. Dante stared at the signature line, his tattooed hand, knuckles scarred, a viper coiled from wrist to elbow, gripping the pen hard enough to crack Italian resin. Sign the insolvency agreement, transfer the family's assets to Serpent Holdings, accept exile. His uncle, Salvatore, had spent 8 weeks convincing him this was the only path. We saved the men. We preserved the bloodline. You take the fall. The family survives. The pen descended. Then a crystal water pitcher shattered against marble like a gunshot. Sir, please, sir, don't sign that. Dante's head snapped up. A black woman stood beside his chair, frozen mid-reach for his empty glass. Her eyes were locked on the document, inches from his hand. She wore the uniform of the invisible. Cheap black vest, white shirt, name tag reading Jordan. She looked terrified, but her eyes were riveted to the upside-down contract, like she'd just read a death sentence. The head lawyer reacted like she'd drawn a weapon. Security explicitly instructed. Dante raised one hand. The room went silent. He stared at her. The Wolf of Manhattan. The man who'd once killed a rival Don with his bare hands in this very building. And he stared at a waitress like she held the key to his resurrection. Jordan stepped forward. Her voice shook, but her words were surgical. Clause 92D, the routing number. That's not a bankruptcy code. The oxygen left the room. That's a federal prosecution account, Jordan whispered. If you sign that, you're not declaring insolvency. You're signing a confession. The rain lashed harder, and in that boardroom, 52 stories above the world, the wolf realized he'd been holding a knife to his own throat. Welcome, my fierce hearts and midnight sinners. If you've been riding with me, you know we don't do Prince Charming here. We do apex predator meets the one woman dangerous enough to save him. We do chemistry mixed with gunpowder and beautiful mistakes. And if you're new, strap in, because you're about to witness a collision between a temp worker with nothing to lose and a mafia king with everything to hide. This isn't romance. This is war. Hit that like button before blood hits marble. Subscribe because your addiction starts now. Smash notifications because in this world, silence gets you killed. Now, let's watch a billion-dollar empire crumble, starting with a single shattered pitcher. The elevator hadn't closed before Dante had Jordan pressed against the mirrored wall, one hand flat beside her head, the other holding a Beretta. How does a waitress recognize DOJ routing codes? His voice was gravel and smoke. Jordan's breath came in sharp gasps. Because I used to be a forensic accountant, before Columbia destroyed me. Jordan Hayes, Dante said slowly, expelled 4 years ago for plagiarizing a thesis on international money laundering algorithms. Blood drained from her face. I didn't plagiarize anything. I know. Dante's eyes were dark and endless. You're the prodigy. The girl who could look at a balance sheet and see lies buried in the decimals. The one who got too close to something she wasn't supposed to. See? Jordan's hands curled into fists. How do you know that? Because I know what that routing code means. And if you recognized it, you're dangerous. The elevator dinged. 20th floor. My organization paid your university board to destroy you 4 years ago, Dante said quietly. Your thesis accidentally mapped the exact algorithm the Rossi family uses for money laundering. The car felt too small. Jordan couldn't breathe. You ruined my life because of a school paper. I signed the budgets. Didn't know your name. Didn't know you were a 21-year-old student with a dying mother and a future. Something in his eyes might have been regret. I just knew there was a risk that needed elimination. Jordan's hands shook. My mother died that year. I lost everything. I know. And now you've just saved my life. Which means my uncle will kill you within the hour if I leave you here. The doors opened to the parking garage. An armored Maserati waited, engine purring. A man in a black suit stood beside it. Marco. Flat, empty eyes that had killed before. Dante grabbed her wrist and pulled her into shadows. Get in. Manhattan blurred past tinted windows as they drove north into the mountains. Rain sheeted down the glass, turning the city into bleeding watercolors. Where are you taking me? Jordan asked. Somewhere secure. I'm just a temp. I don't know anything about your business. You recognized a DOJ black budget routing code buried in a 43-page contract, Dante said calmly. Temps don't do that. Jordan watched trees rush past and tried to control the panic. Why do you need me? Because you just proved I didn't write that confession. That routing code wasn't in the original documents. Someone added it. Someone who wanted me to sign away my freedom. He leaned forward. You saw the trap. That makes you the only witness I have. So you're using me. I'm keeping you alive. My uncle saw you interrupt that meeting. He knows you spotted the clause. If I'd left you in that building, you'd be dead within the hour. Jordan's stomach turned over. He'd kill me for saving you. Yes. The car climbed higher. Rain turned to mist. The money, Jordan said suddenly. The family's liquidity crisis. You said someone's been bleeding the accounts. Dante's head turned. Yes. Let me see the financial records. All of them. If your uncle is setting you up, he had to hide the money somewhere. And if he hid it, I can find it. Dante pressed a button. The partition slid down. Change of plans. Bring everything, every file, every record from the past year. Marco's eyes flicked to the mirror. Sir, she's going to audit the family. Jordan's pulse hammered. She'd just made herself indispensable to a man who'd already destroyed her life once, but she'd also just given herself a chance to survive. If you find the money, Dante said quietly, you live. And if you run, my uncle kills you, and I let him. The words terrified her. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. A spark of the girl she'd been at Columbia, the prodigy who'd loved puzzles. I'll find it, Jordan said. Good, because if you don't, we're both dead. The safe house was glass and dark timber nestled in the mountains. Marco carried aluminum cases to a massive wooden table, then left. And Jordan was alone with the Wolf of Manhattan. Inside, the cabin was warm, expensive minimalism. Leather furniture, stone fireplace, one wall entirely glass, looking out into dark forest. Are you hungry? Dante asked. The question was so normal that Jordan almost laughed. But he was right. She hadn't eaten since morning. He assembled a plate of cold cuts cheese bread and set it in front of her. Eat, then work. Jordan forced herself to chew while Dante watched in silence. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. If your uncle is trying to destroy you, why not just kill him? My world works on proof, Dante said quietly. Salvatore raised me after my grandfather died, taught me everything. Half the family would follow him before they'd follow me. If I move against him without evidence. He stopped. And if I'm wrong, I'll have killed the last family I have left. For the first time, Dante looked less like a predator and more like a man carrying unbearable weight. You don't think you're wrong, Jordan said. No, but I need to be sure. That's why you're here. Jordan set down the bread. The routing code in Clause 92D. It's not just suspicious, it's specific. At Columbia, we studied a case where the DOJ set up a dummy corporation to catch a weapons dealer, They created a paper trail that looked legitimate, but certain account numbers and jurisdictional flags identified it as a federal operation. The routing number in your contract matches that pattern exactly. If I'd signed, what would have happened? The contract would have been filed with federal court, but that routing number would have flagged it to a DOJ task force. They would have interpreted it as a confession. According to the case study, they'd already built the predicate case. They just needed you to sign the admission. Dante stood abruptly and walked to the glass wall, staring into rain-dark forest. There was a shipment 9 months ago, medical equipment to Eastern Europe. Salvatore handled it personally. Medical equipment, real or cover? I assumed real. Now, I'm not sure. Jordan moved to the aluminum cases and flipped them open. Dozens of files, a laptop. Then we find out. For 7 hours, Jordan disappeared into numbers while Dante watched from a leather chair by the fireplace. She opened file after file, cross-referencing transactions, building spreadsheets, mapping money flow through the family's accounts. Around 3 in the morning, the pattern suddenly aligned. Transaction dates, account transfers, money flowing out of primary accounts into smaller subsidiaries, then disappearing. Got you, Jordan breathed. Dante was behind her, instantly. What? Your uncle's been siphoning money for 18 months. Small amounts at first, disguised as expenses. But 9 months ago, the pace accelerated. He's been liquidating assets and hiding proceeds in a shell corporation registered in 4 different countries. She clicked through to another file. The shell corporation is called Serpent Holdings. Dante went absolutely still. The same company offering to buy the family's assets. Your uncle created the financial crisis, then offered to save you by buying everything for pennies on the dollar. Look at the access logs. Every transaction authorized by Salvatore Rossi's private digital key. Dante's hand tightened on the back of her chair. He raised me, taught me everything. I'm sorry. Don't be. You just proved he's been planning to destroy me for over a year. His jaw clenched. Show me everything. Jordan opened the emails. The first was from Salvatore, dated 4 months ago. The boy has gone soft. Too many rules. Too much honor. Time for new leadership. The next, once he signs, DOJ takes him off the board permanently. Assets pass to Serpent, and I liquidate everything. $2.8 billion clean. The soldiers are expendable. Dante's hands shook with rage so profound it made the air dangerous. Jordan opened another file, and her blood went cold. Purchase orders for cryogenic storage containers, industrial refrigeration units, medical equipment, shipping manifests to ports worldwide. Oh my God, she whispered. Dante leaned over her shoulder. When he understood, he slammed his fist on the table. No, the ghost ships. Your uncle isn't just selling the family. He's converting your fleet into organ harvesting operations. He's turning my grandfather's ships into floating butcher shops. The words were poison. Jordan turned. Dante stood in the cabin's center, rain streaming down glass behind him. His hands were fists. The viper on his neck looked like it was breathing. I've done terrible things, hurt people, killed people, but I have rules. No children, no innocence. He looked at Jordan, and something broke behind his eyes. My uncle is planning to harvest organs from kidnapped victims and sell them worldwide, using ships that carry my grandfather's name. Jordan stood slowly. We can stop him. Can we? He's been planning this for over a year. The ships are probably already equipped, the buyers lined up. And I'm supposed to be signing away my life while he disappears with billions. But you didn't sign. I stopped you, and now we know the truth. The sound of breaking glass came from outside. Close. Dante pulled his Beretta and killed the lights. Get away from the windows. Jordan dropped behind the table. Through the glass wall, she could see movement in the trees. Shadows. At least 3. Dante moved to the wall beside the door, gun raised. How did they find us? Jordan breathed. They didn't. Marco brought them here. The front door exploded inward. Marco stepped through, gun with suppressor pointed at Jordan. I'm sorry, boss, but Salvatore pays better. Dante moved like a striking snake, gun swinging up. Marco twisted fast. 2 shots came almost simultaneously. The suppressor coughed. Dante roared. Marco staggered, blood blooming on his shoulder, but didn't fall. Body armor. Run, Dante shouted. Jordan grabbed the laptop and bolted to the bedroom. She locked herself in the bathroom and started uploading files to the cloud while Marco kicked down doors. 40%, 60%, 80%. The bathroom door exploded inward. Marco filled the frame, gun raised. Give me the laptop. 95%. Jordan held it like a shield. Where's Dante? Bleeding. Last chance. 100% uploaded. No, Jordan said. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Dante grabbed the gun from behind. They fought. Brutal, desperate, ugly. Fists and elbows and breaking furniture. Jordan grabbed an aluminum case and swung it at Marco's head. He turned surprised. Dante swung the second case into Marco's temple. Marco dropped like a stone. Dante's knees buckled. Jordan caught him as he collapsed, blood soaking his side where Marco's knife had caught him. Did you get the files? Dante gasped. Yes, they're safe. Good. He pulled out keys. Garage, black Range Rover, drive. You need a hospital. Hospital means police. Police means Salvatore wins. He grabbed her hand. I trust you, Jordan Hayes, so drive. Jordan helped him to the Range Rover. They drove through rain and darkness to a backup apartment in Brooklyn. She stitched Dante's wound with trembling hands and a YouTube tutorial in her memory, each suture pulling damaged pieces together. When she finished, Dante looked at her with something like wonder. 4 years ago, I destroyed your life. You should have let me bleed. Probably. But then I'd never find out if you're actually sorry. I am. His hand found hers. And I'm going to prove it. We stop the ships. Then we burn everything down. 72 hours later, Jordan and Dante stood on a pier in Jersey City with 10 soldiers willing to betray Salvatore for redemption. The Atlantic Mercy rocked in oily water, a cargo vessel converted for horror, extra refrigeration units, reinforced doors on cargo holds, a mobile prison. Ready? Dante asked. Jordan checked the Glock in her waistband. Her hands were steady. Ready. The raid was brutal and efficient. Dante's soldiers overwhelmed the guards. Jordan and Dante went straight for the cargo hold. Inside were cages, 20 of them. Victims, women mostly, some men, all thin, terrified, dirty. They stared with eyes that had given up hope. Get them out, Dante said. I'll set the charges. Jordan and the freed victims worked to open every cage while Dante placed small, precise explosives on key structural points. How many? Dante asked when he returned. 43, Jordan said, voice numb. Dante's face was stone. Not anymore. They led the victims off the ship into waiting vans. Get them to the hospital, Dante told his lieutenants. Tell them they were trafficked. Don't mention me. Dante turned back to the Atlantic Mercy. He pulled out a detonator. This is for my grandfather, for the family he built with honor. He pressed the button. The explosion lit up Jersey City like a second sun. The Atlantic Mercy burned, sank, died, and with it died Salvatore's billion-dollar dream. 24 hours later, Jordan sat in a federal building in Lower Manhattan, surrounded by FBI agents. She'd given them everything. The laptop files, the emails, the manifests, evidence of Salvatore's betrayal, the organ operation, the shell corporations hiding $2.8 billion. Dante sat across the table in handcuffs, making his offer. Complete testimony against Salvatore and the entire organization in exchange for immunity and witness protection for himself and every soldier who cooperated. You're asking us to give immunity to the head of the Rossi family, the lead agent said. I'm giving you the biggest trafficking case in a decade, Dante countered. Organ harvesting across 3 continents, 27 buyers, 43 victims we rescued, 2 more ships we prevented from launching. He gestured to Jordan. She has the financial records that will collapse the entire network. starting with the man who planned it all. The agent looked at Jordan. You're cooperating. On one condition. The victims we saved get protected identities, medical care, everything they need to rebuild. Done? The agent looked back at Dante. You're willing to testify against your own uncle, against 47 members of your organization. Every single one, Dante said. Why? Because my grandfather built the Rossi family on honor, loyalty, protection of the weak. Salvatore perverted that into something monstrous. If burning it all down is the only way to stop him. He met the agent's eyes. Then I'll light the match myself. The agent studied him, then nodded. Deal. Salvatore Rossi was arrested that night, packing for the Cayman Islands. He went down screaming about betrayal, but the evidence was overwhelming. The routing code, the emails, the $2.8 billion, the ships, the victims, everything. The trial lasted 6 months. 47 members of the Rossi family were indicted. 23 took plea deals. The rest went to prison. Salvatore got life without parole. And Dante Rossi disappeared into witness protection with a new name, a new face, and a chance to build something better from the ashes. 6 months after the trial ended, Jordan walked into a federal visitation facility in upstate New York. She'd been here every 2 weeks since Dante entered the program. The visitation room was sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a guard in the corner. Dante entered. He wore civilian clothes now. Jeans, a plain shirt. No visible tattoos. His hair was different, lighter, cut short. They'd changed everything for protection. But his eyes were still the same. Jordan, he said. Michael. She used his new name, the one that came with a second chance. They sat across from each other. The rules said no touching, so they just looked. How's the job and all? Dante asked. Good. We shut down 5 operations last month, saved 78 people. You're making a difference. We made a difference. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You saved 43 lives before you ever met me. You stopped me from signing that contract with nothing but courage and a Columbia education they tried to steal from you. They talked for an hour about nothing and everything. About her work with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. About his new life in a small town in Montana where no one knew who he'd been. About the therapy they were both in. About healing. When the guard said time was up, Jordan stood slowly. Same time next month? She asked. I'll be here. Jordan turned to go, then stopped. Dante, Michael, wait. He looked back. When this is all over, when you're really free, and I've finished what we started, you owe me a date, a real one, not in a prison, not through glass. Dante's smile could have lit the world. Is that a promise? It's a fact, and you know I'm good with facts. Then I'll be counting the days. Jordan left the facility and walked out into upstate New York sunshine. The sky was impossibly blue. The air tasted like pine and possibility. She pulled out her phone and checked her email. 5 new cases waiting. 5 more chances to save lives. Jordan Hayes, the girl who'd lost everything, had found a way to build something better from the ruins. And in a small town in Montana, a man who'd been a wolf was learning to be human. The war was over. The healing had begun. And somewhere in the future, when the world had forgiven them both, there would be a date. Jordan smiled and started walking toward whatever came next. If you made it this far, you know this wasn't just a romance. It was a revolution. This is what happens when the invisible girl becomes the only thing a warlord can see. When I love you looks like burning down $1 billion empire just to keep a promise. Hit that like if Jordan's courage and Dante's sacrifice left you breathless. Subscribe because you need more stories where the underdog takes the crown. And drop a comment telling me, would you have pulled the trigger? Would you have stitched up the man who destroyed your life? Because in this world, love isn't safe. It's survival. And honey, Happy New Year. Leave the safe choices in 2025. This year, we're manifesting the kind of passion that shakes the ground you walk on. Don't settle for boring when you were built for a storm. Welcome to Midnight Stories, where the best happy endings are the ones you have to bleed for.